Hello students, welcome to EduShrine's Class 10th Board Revision campaign. In this session, we are going to learn how to tackle assertion reason questions and how to effectively score and how to make assertion reason questions appear easy for you. Students, last year the exam pattern of CBSE has changed for 10th class board examinations. And most of your seniors who have attempted exam last year got panicked over this. The pattern was new to them. Though few model papers and all were released, they could not effectively prepare towards it, and even very vibrant and hardworking students happened to score low in science and mathematics compared to other subjects. We don't want this changed exam pattern to affect your performance. As Albert Einstein says, amidst of every crisis lies an opportunity. Students, please understand, this changed pattern of questions avoid the demand for rote learning from you. Expect a very good understanding of the subject from you. Develop analytical skills in you. So they are for our good only. Only thing we need to do is to understand exactly how to handle these questions, understand exactly the nature of these questions and tackle them effectively so that we would be flying high in our board examinations. So, EduShrine is bringing for you the PEP sessions, that is pattern exclusive practice sessions. So, stay tuned to our channel and let us start today's session. By the way, patterns of the questions we are discussing here might be exclusive to CBSE, but the subject content I would discuss in this session would be useful equally to both State Board and ICSE students as well. Let's go. Students, the entire scientific development of human race was laid on the foundation of two questions, why and how. We should always ask why behind everything, except for some fundamental facts. Say for example, someone says Akbar was born on so and so year. Would you ask why? No. Leaving that aside, being a science student, you should always ask why behind the aspects. So reasoning is very important aspect of scientific development. The prime objective of assertion reason questions is to check your reasoning abilities, whether you know the why behind everything or not. Now, it is a very smart hybrid of both reasoning based questions and true or false questions that you must have studied since your childhood. So, assertion reason questions will contain generally two statements, both of which could be dependent on each other, relevant to each other, or they could be independent of each other. One statement is titled as assertion, the other statement is titled as reason. Now, four options will be given to you under the two statements, the assertion and reason. The first option would be both assertion and reason are true and reason is a correct explanation of assertion. Means you have called it a reason for a reason because it is a correct explanation for that statement that you have named it as assertion. Whereas both assertion and reason are true, but reason is not a correct explanation of assertion. That means reason may be a relevant statement but doesn't explain the assertion. Reason may be relevant to that particular concept but not explaining the assertion, or reason may be an absolutely irrelevant statement, but it's a true statement. Then either one of them would be true, the other one would be false. So A is true, R is false, and A is false and R is true are the next two options that generally examiner gives you. Now to answer these questions, you need both fact check as well as reasoning ability. I agree these questions are simple. I agree these are the questions whose marks should be in your pocket without any fail. The only problem here is because they look easy, often they tend to confuse you. Today, I am going to give you a tip to tackle these assertion reason questions such that you would never go wrong with the questions, and those 2 or 3 marks will be surely in your pocket. Okay, let's start with few example questions. The first one. See, if you look at this first question, they have mentioned that assertion metals are highly malleable. And in reason, they are saying the metals can be easily hammered into thin sheets. Metals are highly malleable, and that is because they can be easily hammered into thin sheets. Now, pause this video for a while, think of the answer, then get back to the video. Good. Now, if you thought of the answer as option A, let me announce it to you very clearly. Answer is not option A. Now, why is answer not option A? Before telling that to you, let me give you that tip which I have been mentioning. Children, whenever you are handling assertion reason questions, keep this tip in mind. That is, join both the statements. See, as I told you, they could be relevant or irrelevant statements. Join both the statements assertion and reason using the conjunction because, and see if that whole statement makes sense or not. Let me do that for you. Say, metals are highly malleable because they can be easily beaten into thin sheets. I repeat the statement. Metals are highly malleable because they can be beaten into thin sheets. Now, does that statement make sense? If it makes sense, no doubt your answer is option A. If you are still thinking the answer is option A, let me correct yourself. Why answer is not option A? Whereas, because they are beaten into thin sheets, they are highly malleable, or because they are highly malleable, they can be beaten into thin sheets. This is where you have to apply your common sense, children. Malleability is the reason for beating into thin sheets. Beating into thin sheets is not the reason for malleability. That is why both these statements are true. They are highly malleable, and malleability is the meaning of, the very meaning of malleability is they can be hammered into thin sheets. So, hammering into thin sheets is not the reason for malleability, it is just the meaning of malleability. Clear? That's why your answer is option B, not option A. Now, the important question that arises to understand more about this is, what makes metals malleable? That means, what is the reason for malleability? Let me explain that. Students, please understand, any hard substance could have either one of these two characteristics. One is, it could be tensile or it could be brittle. What do you mean by this? See, please understand, tensile means it has a capacity to resist stretching. It has a capacity to resist stretching. That means you keep beating, it keeps reducing its thickness and keeps becoming thinner, but does not break. So, if any substance has a capacity to resist stretching, it is said to be tensile. Whereas, if the substance is powdered on beating, if you apply any mechanical force on the substance, it gets powdered, it gets broken, then it is said to be brittle. Best example is diamond. One of the hardest substances on earth, but on beating, it breaks. That's why diamond is brittle. Whereas the metals like aluminium, copper, iron, gold, silver, gold being the most malleable metal on this earth, you keep on beating, they keep on stretching. That is because of the capacity called tensile strength. Tensile strength means capacity to resist stretching. Now, that is what makes the metals malleable. Now, why the metals are tensile? See, please understand, there will be reasons for the reasons. So, there is no end for reasoning, children. We asked why they are malleable, we said they are tensile, that's why they are malleable. Now we can even ask why they are tensile. And the answer to that question you will be learning in higher classes while you will be understanding the concept of metallic bond clearly. So right now it is a little out of scope of your syllabus. That's why let me not touch that, but still as a student you should always ask why the metals are tensile. So because of the metallic features in metallic bond they are tensile, and because of tensile strength they are malleable. So in the previous question, if the reason was given as metals have very high tensile strength, then your answer would have been option A, but now your answer is option B. Let us now move on to the second example from assertion reason questions today. See, the question is about acids and their corrosive character, and the assertion given to you is acids should be used carefully. The reason given for that is all acids are corrosive. Now options are as usual. Now children, read the two statements carefully, apply the tip I have just given you by putting the conjunction because between the two sentences. Acids should be used carefully because all acids are corrosive. Now you see the logic. Acids should be used carefully is a general statement and it cannot be ignored, and we can't argue that specifically only few acids should be used carefully. However, the reason that because acids are corrosive we should use them carefully is perfect, whereas the word all is not good here. So all acids are corrosive is a wrong statement. Because acids are corrosive they should be used carefully is a good statement. So because you have all in the reason, the answer would be assertion is true but reason is false. Now it was a simple discussion, simple explanation. Now that we have understood the answer, let us learn more about the strength of acids. Based on this strength, acids are classified into two types. That is strong acids and weak acids. Now, what do you mean by strength of acids? What do you mean by strong acid and weak acid? Please understand, strength of acids has to do something with the extent of ionization. The extent of ionization of acid. Let me elaborate on that. Students, all the acids are covalent substances. That means between atoms electron pairs are shared and hence those covalent molecules, those acid molecules are formed. Now whenever I'll take a classic example here, say hydrogen chloride. You know very well hydrogen chloride is a gas at room temperature and the hydrogen chloride molecules are formed by sharing of a pair of electrons between hydrogen and chlorine. And why do you call it a covalent bond? Because this electron pair which is shared is mutually shared. That means one electron is contributed by hydrogen, the other electron is contributed by chlorine. Now, when this is dissolved in water, when this hydrogen chloride is dissolved in water, it dissociates into aqueous H plus ion, that is proton, and aqueous chloride ion. Now, how did that happen? When you dissolve hydrogen chloride in water, one of the atoms, that is chlorine, which is more electronegative, takes away both the bonding electrons. Now you see, each atom has given one electron. Now both the electrons are taken by chlorine. That means hydrogen has lost one electron, became cation, and chlorine has gained one electron and became anion. Now please understand, in any process, if neutral particles change into ions, you call it ionization, simple. Whether an isolated atom is losing electrons and becoming cation, or an isolated atom is gaining electrons and becoming anion, or a neutral molecule is breaking into ions, any time from a neutral species if ion is formed, you call it ionization. So this phenomenon here also is called as ionization. And you know very well, acids ionize to produce a common cation called H+. That is why they are recognized as acids, by the way. Now you see, To what extent does this ionize will decide whether this should be a strong acid or weak acid. Now, strong acids are the acids where complete ionization happens. So, if any substance undergoes complete ionization in aqueous solutions, then that is called as a strong acid, whereas if it undergoes partial ionization in the solutions, then it is called as a weak acid. Then what do you mean by this complete ionization and partial ionization? Let us understand that. Again, I will come to the example of hydrogen chloride. Say I have dissolved 1 mole of hydrogen chloride molecules into water. What do you mean by 1 mole? Avogadro number of particles, that is 6.023 into 10 power 23. Now, when I dissolved 1 mole of HCl molecules into water, all the Avogadro number of particles, all the 6.023 into 10 power 23 particles break and turn into ions, such that you will get 1 mole of H plus and 1 mole of Cl minus, then it is said to have undergone complete ionization, which is true in case of hydrogen chloride because it is a strong acid. Whereas, let us take another classical example, that is acetic acid. When acetic acid is dissolved in water, you get acetate ion, anion, and H plus ion should be common for acids, that is cation. Now you please understand, if 1 mole of acetic acid is dissolved in water, 1 mole of acetic acid molecules, that is 6.023 into 10 power 23 acetic acid molecules are dissolved in water, maybe 10% of it or 1% of it will break into ions. That means out of 1 mole, say if it is 1% dissociation, out of 1 mole, 0.01 moles is converted to acetate ions and H plus ions. Then what happened to the remaining 0.99 moles? Remaining 0.99 moles will remain as acetic acid molecules only, unionized. This is the meaning of partial ionization, please understand. Now, if an acid undergoes complete ionization like this, then it is said to be a strong acid, whereas an acid undergoes partial ionization like this, then it is said to be a weak acid. You know very well sulfuric acid, nitric acid, perchloric acid. These are few, along with hydrochloric acid, nitric acid, sulfuric acid, perchloric acid are few very popular strong acids. When it comes to weak acids, all organic acids are weak, all carboxylic acids, any other organic acids you take, all of them are weak. Among inorganic acids, you have carbonic acid, which is a content of your soda and other beverages, you drink it happily. Then you have got sulfurous acid. Like that, there are few inorganic acids which are weak acids also. Okay? Now, this is what we have understood about strength of acids. Now please understand, strong acids are corrosive, weak acids are non-corrosive. Whereas in the question they mentioned that all acids are corrosive, that's why the reason is a wrong statement, whereas acid should be used carefully is a generalized statement which should be considered as a right statement. Hence, the option is option C, that is assertion is correct whereas reason is incorrect. Adding to this knowledge, one more aspect I will tell you. When you are dealing with a strong acid and you are trying to prepare solution of a strong acid. So, preparing solution of a strong acid. Now students, there is a question. While I am trying to prepare solution of a strong acid, whether I should add water to acid or I should add acid to water. Come on, pause this video for a while and try to answer that. Very good. Now let me tell you, dissolving acid in water is a highly exothermic process. You know very well, an exothermic process is a process in which energy is released, and in this case it is released in the form of heat. If the dissolution happens very rapidly and production of heat happens very rapidly, then there is a chance of container breaking and the content spurting, which might lead to lab accidents because of acids. Now, when does the process occur rapidly? When does the heat produce rapidly? When small amount of water is added to large amount of acid. So please remember, we should never add drop by drop water to acid. We should always add drop by drop acid to water, so that heat will be produced gradually, so that your container will not break, contents will not spurt, and there will be no lab accidents. Otherwise, the corrosive acids might cause damage to our health. Okay, this was about the additional information as well as the understanding of the second example of assertion reason questions today related to corrosive character of acids. Moving on to the third example for assertion reason questions. See, they have given you a reaction here where cupric oxide being heated along with hydrogen gas to produce metallic copper and water. See, generally the reaction is conducted in a combustion tube. Hydrogen gas will be passed over hot cupric oxide, and the oxide glows red hot and continues glowing even if you remove the Bunsen burner. Lots of heat will be released during the reaction because it's an exothermic reaction. When you come to the products, you can see a colorless liquid water, you can see a reddish brown solid copper, and whatever the excess hydrogen that is left out after the reaction, that being a combustible gas, hydrogen being a combustible gas, catches fire, so you can see it as a flame at the end. The context of the question is to identify the nature of oxidizing agent and reducing agent in this reaction. Okay, so he is saying in this particular reaction, hydrogen gas is acting as the oxidizing agent. Hydrogen gas is acting as the oxidizing agent. Then in reason he has given oxidizing agent is something that undergoes reduction. Because oxidizing agent is a substance that undergoes reduction, in this reaction hydrogen is the oxidizing agent. Now let us understand the answer for this with a detailed explanation for redox reactions. Students, this question is based on the concept of redox reactions, which you must have studied in your first chapter, that is chemical reactions and equations. Now the word redox reactions of course contains two words, reduction and oxidation. According to classical definition, according to classical concept of redox reactions, which defines oxidation and reduction based on the two elements oxygen and hydrogen if you take, then oxidation is the process in which oxygen is added to a substance, whereas oxidation is a process in which hydrogen is removed from a substance. So you call the process as oxidation if oxygen is added or hydrogen is removed. Similarly, reduction is a process in which oxygen is removed from a substance or hydrogen is added to a substance. So please understand, for reduction with respect to hydrogen it is addition, for oxidation with respect to hydrogen it is removal. For reduction with respect to oxygen is removal, for oxidation with respect to oxygen is addition. These are fundamental definitions which you are supposed to remember, there is no choice. Now the question is, what is a redox reaction? And redox reaction is a reaction between reducing agent and oxidizing agent, and both reduction and oxidation occur simultaneously. There is no process on this earth which you can call it exclusively oxidation or exclusively reduction. If there is a substance undergoing reduction, there will be a substance undergoing oxidation. Since both of them occur simultaneously, you call such reaction as redox reaction. That means on this earth, either a given reaction is redox or a given reaction is non-redox. Simple. Means there could be a reaction in which no oxidation and reduction are happening, or there is a reaction in which both reduction and oxidation are happening. Otherwise, you don't have any reaction in which exclusively reduction or exclusively oxidation happening. With that knowledge, let us take the same example which is asked in the question and elaborate on this aspect. In the question given to you, solid cupric oxide was heated along with hydrogen gas so that you got a reddish brown colored copper with formation of water, colorless liquid water. Now there are two processes here. Cupric oxide becoming copper is one process, hydrogen becoming water is the other process. Now the question here is, when cupric oxide is becoming copper, what is happening? Cupric oxide is losing oxygen. And according to definition, what is removal or loss of oxygen? Removal or loss of oxygen is nothing but reduction, which means that cupric oxide when becomes copper, it has undergone reduction. Similarly, when hydrogen has become water, what happened there? There is gain of oxygen. And as per the definition, what do you mean by addition of oxygen refers to what? Addition of oxygen refers to oxidation. Since hydrogen has gained oxygen, it has undergone oxidation. So now the next question here is, cupric oxide has lost oxygen, has undergone reduction. Who helped cupric oxide undergo reduction? Hydrogen, because it is pulling away oxygen from cupric oxide. Hence, hydrogen is called reducing agent in the reaction. Similarly, who supplied oxygen for hydrogen to undergo oxidation and become water? Cupric oxide. So, cupric oxide has caused oxidation of hydrogen. So, cupric oxide is called oxidizing agent. And hence I said redox reaction is nothing but a reaction between a reducing agent and an oxidizing agent. Now observe this. To cause reduction of cupric oxide, hydrogen itself had to undergo oxidation. So reducing agent undergoes oxidation during a redox reaction. By supplying oxygen to hydrogen, cupric oxide itself has undergone reduction. That means oxidizing agent should undergo reduction during a redox reaction. Conclusion: any reaction in which both reduction and oxidation occur simultaneously is called a redox reaction. And during a redox reaction, substance which undergoes a reduction is an oxidizing agent. A substance which undergoes oxidation is a reducing agent. With this knowledge, let us understand the answer for that question, that is example number 3 under our assertion reason questions. Now come back to the question. We concluded that cupric oxide is undergoing reduction, so it is an oxidizing agent, and hydrogen is undergoing oxidation, hence it is a reducing agent, but here he is calling hydrogen as an oxidizing agent. So assertion is a wrong statement. Whereas in reason, oxidizing agent undergoes reduction during redox reaction, that's what we have concluded. Here, the oxidizing agent is cupric oxide, and it has undergone reduction from cupric oxide to copper, hence it could act as oxidizing agent and cause the oxidation of hydrogen. So, assertion is false, but the reason is true. So, your answer for this question is option D. Students, hope you got quite a good idea of how to tackle assertion reason questions. In the upcoming videos in this series, many more assertion reason questions to come. Not only in chemistry, but also in physics and biology. And then you have got very interesting concept based and pattern exclusive practice videos coming from various subjects from mathematics, biology, physics, chemistry, even social studies. So stay tuned to the channel, and to get updates and alerts on the videos that we are posting, please subscribe to EduShrine. Be in touch, have a good learning, and enjoy your life along with the studies. See you.